Welcome to Trending in Education. Mike Palmer here in New York City at the HolonIQ Summit, packed to the gills. So we're outside. This is a hallway conversation, literally. I'm joined by Sara Leoni, who's the CEO of Ziplines Education. Sara, welcome to Trending in Education.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. We always like to get started by hearing your origin story, how you got to this point in your professional life. Spin us a yarn.
Yeah, I love it. So I always like to start at the very beginning. I was an athlete growing up.
Nice.
I was a Division I softball player. And that really helped me build a lot of the core that has enabled me to move forward in my career. So super competitive, very, very team focused.
What position?
I was a center fielder.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
That's like a quarterback kind of.
Center fielder, went to the College World Series, finished third.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where'd you play?
UNLV, University of Nevada.
The
Las
Running
Vegas.
Rebels.
The Running Rebs.
For
The
sure.
Lady Rebs.
Lady
at the
Rebs.
time.
There you go.
Yeah. And through that experience, really, learned a lot about just thinking through how to drive forward in different scenarios. So work under pressure, dealing with unknowns and
So team sport.
team sport.
You know, softball, you have to both be the individual, but then also in the outfield, you're a team player.
Exactly. And that really has helped me in terms of how I think about, the team that I've developed at Ziplines. But if I continue to back up, I graduated with a degree in marketing, focused my early career at small and large organizations, companies like E-Trade, Yahoo. You might have heard of a few of those.
Yeah.
And, in that experience, recognized that digital skills were really growing. And when I thought back about the skills that I had developed in my college life, it was very theoretical, much less industry focused.
Yep.
And, I ended up working at an organization, having an opportunity to build a direct-to-consumer business that was focused on textbook rental, which is not a very sexy thing.
Sure.
But
it is education.
And through that experience, I really saw the opportunity to help students as they progress through their experiences, and specifically how to help make education more affordable.
Yep.
Understanding that not all students look alike,
Right.
and that adult learners in a lot of sense need a lot of help getting through that process. And in that organization, one of the things that we spent a lot of time looking at was first-generation students and completion rates of first-generation students. And not just completion rates, but then how do they, what do their pathways to careers look like? And, you've seen the stats that have come out from, at the time it was Burning Glass, now it's Lightcast, around, the percentage of students into underemployment. One of the problems I saw in the market that was really clear was, how do you make that connection? How do you help students to earn those skills before they graduate from college? And that was really the beginning of GreenFig. We were working a lot with presidents and provosts to embed our programs into an undergraduate experience. So students left college with digital skills.
And GreenFig is Ziplines before rebranding?
That is correct. That is correct. So GreenFig was founded in 2017.
Okay.
So similar capabilities, pretty different in terms of just our overall go-to-market. But one of the things, and I'm sure you hear this a lot in talking to CEOs and leaders in the higher education space, dealing in the for-credit area, especially working in the undergraduates and working through faculty senates, is really, really challenging. And, when we were thinking about product market fit, I did a number of tests. And one of the areas that I really found to be super fruitful was in the space of adult learners and helping people, as they think about progressing through their career, upskill, reskill, develop the right skill sets in order to really move their careers forward.
Lifelong learning,
60-year
curriculum, all that stuff.
Exactly. And that's really the genesis of Ziplines Education.
Right.
So we are a career accelerator that partners with higher education institutions to deliver industry-focused career certificates that enable adult learners to upskill and reskill into tech-enabled careers is the way we think about it.
Right. And then there's also a focus on middle America as well?
Yeah. So when I talk about the higher education institutions we partner with, about 1% of students go to a Ivy League school, right? The vast majority are going either into, say, a community college or into a four-year public institution.
Right.
I think four-year public institutions serve 50 to 60% of the U.S. market. And those brands are affordable. They're more approachable. And so those are our primary targets when we think about who are we partnering with, because they enable us to meet the needs of a very large market, a very large underserved market that we consider middle America.
Yeah. And then for middle America, the skills that are hot now. I imagine you have your finger on the pulse, particularly tech adjacent, I think is one of the phrases that I heard. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little more about your audience and the types of skills that they're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So, audience average age is 37.
Mm.
67% of the learners that we serve are female. These are folks that are really looking to build the skills that they need or that they believe that they need to be able to transition into a career. So areas we focus on are things like digital marketing, business analytics, project management,
Yeah.
product management. We just launched a course in AI prompting.
Right.
And those might be, like, when you hear those particular career areas, you think like they've been around forever. The difference is a lot of the skills that are really required in those particular careers are now technology focused or what we call tech enabled or tech adjacent.
Yeah.
And so they're not areas where people need to learn how to code technology, but they absolutely have to know how to use technology.
Right. I remember talking to Ryan Craig from Achieve Partners about apprenticeships, and he was talking about HubSpot administrators and Salesforce administrators.
Absolutely.
They're like the glue that holds big organizations together, but you don't think about that if you're going to community college.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you've been around since 2017.
Green Fig was founded in 2017.
Okay.
And it was originally incubated out of a venture capital firm that had first invested in Marketo. If you're familiar with marketing automation platform, saw the need to fill the gap in this space and brought me on to really determine what the right product market fit was. And the genesis to Ziplines is really, it's more about my story and my vision for the organization. So where I saw the opportunity, again, is on the adult learner side, really thinking about how do we create more personalized pathways for people as they're thinking about, regardless of their background or their educational situation, how they can be enabled to develop the skill sets to transition appropriately.
Yeah. And then what's your read on the other buzzword I've heard lately is the half-life of skills, meaning that you learn something today and then 6 months from now, you might need to learn something again. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah. I mean, we used to think about the half-life of skills as maybe 12 to 24 months. And you're absolutely right. I think that continuum, right, has shortened significantly to say, depending on the area, you know, I think some areas you're still going to see some of that longevity, and others it's monthly, right? When we think about how quickly generative AI is changing and how quickly those skills are evolving, our assumption is that people are going to have to continue to go back to the well to learn those new skills, right? And to continue to refresh and to really make sure that they're staying relevant with what employers need today.
Yeah, I was talking to someone recently about the digital portfolio that learners need to kind of signify where they are, what they know how to do, their badges, or like LinkedIn skills are kind of a joke.
Yeah.
But like something like that to let employers know, this is where I'm expert, this is where I'm going. It sounds like that's the space, you're a more formal, structured way to do that.
100%. 100%. So when we think about what we want our learners to walk away with are credentials that employers recognize. So you talked about HubSpot earlier. You talked about Salesforce earlier. So in our programs, not only are learners going to earn a certificate of completion from the university, right? That university badge from schools like University of Oregon, University of Nebraska, University of Virginia, but they're also going to earn certifications or credentials from those leading technology platforms, platforms like Salesforce or HubSpot or Tableau or fill in the blank. You know, what we really look for is what are the trending platforms that are in most demand for employers in different regions. And then we can develop relationships with those folks and really embed a lot of that training directly into our programming. Yeah,
well, you're a perfect guest then, because I love to talk about the future of work. And it sounds like that's really where you're living and breathing these days. And then can't really talk about the future of work without generative AI and how that's throwing a wrench in the works or maybe an opportunity. How are you thinking about the revolution that we're 18 months into? I don't even know how long.
You know, I can't tell you the number of investors who ask me, okay, so when are you building an AI course? And you need to build an AI course. And we knew that it was obviously going to be an important part of our portfolio and specifically a really important part of the learning journey for our students. At the same point, we didn't know what it was at the beginning or where it was going to go. And so specifically what we have done is really integrated those generative AI tools into some of the hands-on activities that we have students doing. So instead of running an Excel or a Google sheet, right, they may be uploading a larger CSV into ChatGPT
Yep.
and running an analysis on that data
Yep.
and really showing them how not just to leverage generative AI, but to create efficiencies in their daily work life.
Right.
And then, as I mentioned, we just literally launched an AI prompting course this month. And again, we wanted to wait a little bit to see where things were headed and where we could have the most impact. And somebody asked me earlier today, like, why AI prompting? And there's a lot of courses around how to think about AI from a corporate perspective as
Right.
leaders. How do you integrate AI?
Like literacy.
Yeah. And ours is, how do you use it? Very hands-on, very hands-on. How do you leverage it if you're developing a marketing campaign?
Right.
How do you, if you're in a role that maybe doesn't require deep analytics, but you need to do an analysis,
Right.
how do you actually use these tools to create some of those outputs?
Because I think a lot of people are kind of deer in the headlights about this stuff. It's just too much change. They don't know how to get started, which is why I imagine having a trusted partner who can say, this is what you need, this is what's going to get you where you need to go is hugely helpful.
Yeah.
And then what about on the other side? You also look for partners with the HubSpots and the Marketos and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, we want to, where we can, we want to form relationships with those organizations. So we have a great relationship with Atlassian Jira, a very large firm, right, that helps project managers from a platform perspective.
Entered many bugs and product feature requests in Jira. So I know Atlassian.
Yeah. And we don't need to have those relationships. I mean, in many cases, some of those either education platforms or certification capabilities are available for people to access. And so sometimes we get the question, well, why am I not just going to go to Jira or Salesforce Trailhead? The reality is we provide a much more comprehensive learning experience. So it's not just, what we like to see is it's not just about learning how to use the tool. Like anybody can learn how to use a tool. It's asking the question of why am I using this tool, right? Really building the business strategy behind the application of that tool, the contextualization of that tool against what my day-to-day work life looks like.
Yeah. I've heard it also described as like mindsets as opposed to skill sets, where like lots of times people don't have like a maker's mindset when it comes to technology. They're like, that's somebody else's job.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main things, the democratizing aspect of these new tools is like, you don't have to be overly technical. You don't really need to be a developer or a coder to develop a digital career. And then increasingly all careers are in some way digital.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the thing that you have to have is the motivation, right?
Yeah.
The desire, the perseverance to get through some of those failed starts, and that's what we see a lot with people in AI is they get in and they start to use it, but they don't get exactly what the output is.
Right.
So they can't extend their mind beyond where it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our goal is how do we help them expand their horizons in terms of how they think about these things?
Yeah, amazing stuff. I'm talking to Sara Leoni, who's the CEO of Ziplines Education. It's been a wonderful conversation. We'll include links in the show notes. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you, maybe some advice for folks looking to chart a career in educational technology. You've had a pretty interesting run here to get to where you are. Any advice for folks who might be charting a career in education?
Yeah, I think really understanding the market. I think so many people come into the education space assuming that it looks like or feels like other markets or other verticals, and it just doesn't.
Yeah.
And I've always been in higher education, so I'll give you my perspective there.
Yeah.
But I've talked to, so many different leaders that come out of Silicon Valley, which is where I hail from.
Okay.
Technology companies that think, oh, I'm going to go in and I'm going to disrupt higher education. Or I know I'm going to take this sales playbook and I'm going to apply it to this space. And the reality is that the buyers and their needs are so very different.
Right.
And so pay attention, right? Go out and talk to as many people as you can. Learn about what their ecosystem looks like, what challenges they're up against.
Yeah.
And figure out how you weave your product and offering and your value proposition into their needs versus, you coming to the table with, an assumption that you know how it all works.
Right. And then I hear there's good news. There's been some investment in your platform. Where do you see things going next?
Yeah. I mean, listen, thankfully we are on a tear right now from a growth perspective. We have a lot of room in our existing strategies. So we're continuing to sign new, really exciting university partners. They give us tremendous reach. There's a lot in our portfolio that we want to continue to build out. We feel like we're just the beginning. And then we really see an opportunity to start to personalize and really think about how do we customize our programs and the skills around the needs of the learners that we serve. And if you think about the university relationship, they give us a really distinct advantage in regional markets. And if you look at labor market data, actually regional markets, sometimes there's 80% of skills that might be consistent and 20% that are going to be more central to that region. And the way that we've designed our curriculum is very modular. And so we have an opportunity to really tie what we've developed, those skills we've developed, to the needs of somebody in a particular region or institution. And we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, it makes sense too, because also industry is different depending on the region too. So the job market is going to be totally different. Amazing stuff here. As we wrap up, Sara, what are some takeaways for folks going away from this conversation? What should they know about Ziplines? Any concluding thoughts, anything you want to reinforce as we wrap up?
No, I mean, I will just say for all you listeners out there, anybody who wants to connect, I'm always interested in networking. I find that talking to folks in the education space is incredible, always opens my eyes to new and different things. And, keep on keeping on. The education world needs us. And it's a hard road, but it's well worth it because we have the opportunity to impact lives in a really meaningful way.
Amazing stuff with Sara Leoni, the CEO of Ziplines Education. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Mike.
And for our listeners, hopefully you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe, tell your friends, do all the good things. We'll be back again soon. This is Trending in Education.